Efed Podcast, the podcast exploring our fantasy wrestling hobby, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real. I'm your host, Mikey Unlikely, and I'd like to thank you for joining us here on the Atomic Dropcast Network. All right, everybody, episode 27, here we go. Up today on the podcast, we've got Ricky, the handler, the man behind Pretty Ricky Stanton, as well as Blood and Nations Promotions. That's going to be a great talk. Excited to get in on that one. Talk about his AI Fed. Interesting. We've also got the Efed Podcast question of the week, as per the usual. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of being quarantined. I'm almost ready to get up, get going, and get back to work. Sitting at home was cool for a week or two, and now I'm over it. What do you guys think? Let me know. Hit me up on the Twitter machine at the Efed Podcast, or slide into the Discord. You can find the Discord link in the Twitter profile, twitter.com/the Efed Podcast. Don't forget to check out the Patreon over at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. That's where you can support the show. Of course, the show comes out every Tuesday, absolutely free. But if you want to help out the show, get some extra perks, and have some more fun, you can do that over at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. Guys, today we are not going to be doing the Efed Spotlight. Surprise, surprise. Right now I don't have any Efeds in my inbox, in my DMs, looking to be advertised. But if you have not been on the Efed Spotlight and you would be interested in doing so, reach out to me and we can get you in on one of the future episodes of the Efed Podcast. Guys, before we get into it, let's get a word from our awesome sponsors.
Defiance, an angle-fed boasting 8 years of continuous fantasy wrestling. Defiance offers opportunities for original characters, micros, a standalone website utilizing Backstage 3 script, and a forum hosted on the long-running fwrestling.com, as well as a roster full of some of the most experienced writers in the game. Come see for yourself at defiancewrestling.com. That's defiancewrestling.com.
Are you into MMA e-fedding? Check out one of the premier fantasy MMA gyms in our world, TW Combat Sports, housing fighters like Juanita Sanchez, Tommy Ward, and Rob Jones. You know you're getting the hardest hitting action with hashtag the TW Combat Show, so give them a follow on Twitter at TW Combat. Don't make them hurt you.
Modern Day Gladiators is a pro wrestling themed print and play game that uses a standard deck of cards and 21 unique wrestlers along with action cards to play out a myriad of matches from one-on-one to tag to in a cage. You can play solo, booking each show, but in this one, you're not going to know how this script's going to play out. You can play in a group, with each person playing as a wrestler, cutting promos, creating segments, which those are going to impact your options when the action inevitably ends up in the ring. To learn more, visit DriveThru RPG and search for Modern Day Gladiators, the best wrestling imaginable.
The Efed Question of the Week.
The Efed Question of the Week is brought to you by the EWC. The Extreme Wrestling Corporation is the game's longest-running roleplay Efed, having been established in 1997. With over 100 active role players across 4 unique brands, the EWC offers opt-in booking on all of its bi-weekly shows. It's home to Strangle Mania and the 4-day wrestling festival known as WrestleFest. The EWC is built on its welcoming community with zero bias and no drama. All styles are welcome. Come check out the EWC today at EWC4life.com. That's EWC, the number 4, life.com. And this week's Efed Podcast question of the week is, what one real wrestler has influenced your primary character the most, whether it be ring style, promos, etc.? And wow, did we get a lot of answers from the crowd on this one. I'm going to run through these pretty quick, so I apologize. I'm not going to give you the usual quippy response. I'm going to hit them because we got quite a few answers. At Chris Brock EWC, when I created the character initially, I was inspired by Mikey Whipwreck and how he went from ring crew to performer. Over the years, I've also stole from some of the great faces of the sport like Dusty, Sting, and DDP. At Knight of Sympathia, whatever, Billy in the Field, The primary inspiration for Elise Aries is Eddie Guerrero. I needed a way to win matches for someone who wasn't very good at wrestling, and all the creativity he's shown over the years was the perfect answer. At El Perro Ward, without question, it's Tatsuya Naito. I'm not very good with Japanese names, so I'm going to bounce off a couple of these. At JVD Rooster, Arn Anderson. Classic. At TW Combat, I'm going to go with Jack Nation. He was actually inspired by WCW's Lance Storm. He is very boring with little personality, and his ring style is influenced by Taz. He even took that style to MMA as an expert in the art of BJJ. At User Poets, Eli Flair is Cactus Jack and Terry Funk. Impulse is CM Punk, Benoit, Angle, and Lou Thez. And MJF really couldn't say. Good job with one wrestler there, Pete. Up next, at Sean_Warstein. If I'm being honest, Punk on the mic, Edge in the ring. A full opportunist willing to pounce on the weak and ready to run away at the drop of a dime. At Rebellious Dink, Jim Duggan. Ho! Listen up, tough guy. Okay. Chris Constantine Jr., 1% INC. Bugs Bunny. I dig it. At Hero High Spot, Dusty Rhodes, Jeff Hardy, and perhaps The Fiend. At Andy Murray, Babyface, Dusty Rhodes, heel, Ole Anderson. At Whammy Bar, Shawn Michaels. Brian will love that one. At the Dropkick King, ring style Okada, but my finisher came from DDP. At Cool Cancer Giles, Ric Flair. He says his shoes cost more than your house. At Killer B Song 1, for April here at least, the ring style is Zack Sabre Jr. Promos, Kenny Omega. At Ruthann HEWC, for Ruthann it was Victoria, aka Lisa Marie Varon, and a mix of Miss Elizabeth. Want it to be like outside of the ring, she's very to herself, but inside she's hard-hitting. At Atara Themis, greedy, controlling, and in between when it comes to, and no in between when it comes to greatness or complete crap. Plus, awesome hair. Of course, she's talking about Vinnie Mac, Vince McMahon. At Bad Girl Inc., not a wrestler per se, but for me it was ECW's Francine. From her looks, her attitude, the raunchy outfits, and her willingness to take ridiculous bumps in the ring certainly influenced me to make a character somewhat based off of her. At OCW Efed, or at OCW Fed, Attitude Era Vinnie Mac. At Mainstream IOW, Ric Flair. At Efed Wrestler, Rip Rogers. Though I don't think the general population of Efed Twitter will know who that is. I know who Rip Rogers is, and I think he's a great choice. At Classic Laughlin, Raven. At BC Real Family Man, my ring style is most inspired by Lou Thez. At Blair_Buchanan, Trish Stratus. At Mikey Unlikely, I know that guy. Toru Yano. At SPR Row Res. Back when I RP'd, my character's ring style was influenced by a mix of Dynamite Kid, Hiroshi Hayes, and Yuji Nagata. Promos were Bret Hart for sure. At Failed Rhetoric, the best in the business, OBS, you already know, Bockwinkel. At Titanus Sam, The Undertaker, hands down. When I created Samantha, I wanted to make someone who was really good strikes. What better person to use than an inspiration than someone who's been deemed the best pure striker? I do also have her sometimes pull her thumb across her throat. At Bane_Mac, Arn Anderson. At I_am_Tempest, Bray Wyatt. At Distorted Amber, perhaps a slightly odd choice, but I would say maybe Tommy Dreamer, in terms of ability to just survive everything. He always seemed unkillable, even in the face of the worst odds. He was unlikable to me. I hate Tommy Dreamer. At Starburst Blasts, female character, definitely some of the stronger female characters. Male character, the Ministry Taker for my monster heel. At Championship W's, Leston Roberts was supposed to be an 80s Hogan pastiche, but sometimes accidentally creeps into parody territory, brother. At Demolition Angel, Minoru Suzuki. Aside from the love of death matches, he inspired most of what embodies her. She isn't afraid of anybody, she has her own agenda, and she'll fight literally anybody to obtain what she wants. And of course, she loves to hurt people. At Mo Money Bilson. Sakaruba. Again, I'm bad at Japanese names, guys. At Godly Ken Davidson. I started doing this in 96, so the references are a bit dated, but in terms of size, Chris Benoit. In terms of moveset, it was heavily Lucha Libre inspired, and that changed over time as the character had injuries. At The Answer JC, Jake Roberts and CM Punk. Equal parts menacing and snarky. He wrestles like Vader or Samoa Joe, and using the big boot as a finish is like Test. At Emo Trayman, I don't really have a primary character at the moment, but Megan is mostly influenced by Mick Foley for the split personality thing. The rest of her was influenced by things outside of wrestling. Awesome. Let's flip it over to the Discord side of things. At Impact's Head Booker, or Alan One True God Christopher. Truthfully, the main character, his dialect wasn't really taken from a wrestler. I actually took a lot of inspiration from a video game character, Seymour Gato from Final Fantasy X. And then from Chris Formage of the Epsilon tracked GTA San Andreas and later GTA 5. He was so diabolical, so cold in how he talked and the schemes he concocted, and I just took it and applied it to the man that quite honestly believes himself to be God enough that he created an organized religion around him. That's a long sentence, brother. Not a cult, mind you, just a spiritual, like-minded group of individuals whom tithe money in exchange for spiritual salvation and merit badges. Chris Formage and Epsilon gave me some sort of framework for a mock religion. Hashtag totally not a cult. At Warren Fitz 45, Deacon, I'd have to go with The Undertaker because of the obvious similarities, though stylistically he would probably be closer to Kane. Seth is Burns. Oscar Burns is a mix of a few influences, including Doug Williams, Zack Sabre Jr., and Japanese wrestler Hideki Suzuki. Personality-wise, he's more like actor-comedian Reese Darby. Everybody Loves Will says Mikey Unlikely. What a great inspiration. Percival Conrad Prince. I never based my character, the Plague, on anyone specific, but I do boast that he was trained by Chris Benoit. At Jakey, guy who has a fish for profile pic, Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. The Matt Loaf. Fellow writers had said that my Stacy character was like a face Sami Zayn during his run in NXT. Big heart, always fighting to make it to the top and not quite getting there, and then finally managed to pull it off. Judge Megan says Charlotte Flair, and ironically enough, the pick base is that said wrestler. Though not alike, the only thing that's based off of Charlotte is the promos, mainly during her face run back in 17, where it was passionate. When I returned to Efedding in 19 and went to Trinity to handle, everyone dug it. Also, it also helps when you're a fan of the wrestler too. At Mongo the Destroyer. So when Mongo was my main, it was definitely Vince McMahon during the Attitude Era. Like he was a dickhead heel, but not beyond just the most embarrassing crap. Like the time he cut a promo about pooping his bed, daydreaming about The Undertaker. That's beautiful stuff, man. That's why I had no qualms about booking Mongo to defend the championship versus a GOAT, and then accidentally losing to said GOAT on live TV. Awesome. Love the answers this week, guys, for the Efed Podcast question of the week. Keep it up. If you want to participate, you can find us over on Twitter at the Efed Podcast. The question of the week is always pinned to the top of the profile. All you have to do is comment below, and you'll likely make the show.
Hi, this is Ford, handler of High Flyer and co-owner of DefianceWrestling.com, and you're listening to the Efed Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Mikey. No, we're not back to the show just yet. First, I want to tell you about my Patreon. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh no, am I going to have to pay for the podcast? No. The answer is emphatically no. The show has been and forever will be free. No, Brunk, you will not have to pay for the podcast. However, we have been asked by a handful of people how they can help support the show. And we've also been asked, mostly by Fuzz, why we didn't have a Patreon yet. And I quote, "You stupid I can't believe you don't have a Patreon. I will hurt you if you don't take my money now." End quote. That was Fuzz. He's a scary dude. So with that in mind, you can find us at patreon.com/Efed Podcast. Contributions start as low as $3 a month. Thank you very much for your consideration. Please get fuzz off our backs. All right, guys, welcome back for another edition of the interview segment here on the Efed Podcast. This week, we're joined by one of the most charismatic men on Twitter. Let's put that out there. Great follow, a guy who's been a supporter of the Efed Podcast from the very beginning and actually was one of the first guys to put it out there for us and help get our name on the map using his own podcast. We'll talk about that and much, much more here on the interview. We got Pretty Ricky Stanton. Ricky, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How's it going?
It's going very well. Very, very well. I'm glad you're doing very well. Hope everyone over there is staying safe. And I'm glad you took the time to join us. I've been waiting for this interview for a long time.
Yeah, I was thrilled. I was thrilled to get on the list. I knew it was a hefty list. And my guys at SC were like, we got to get you on there. This thing is blowing up. And I was like, yeah. So I was glad to get on at this time. It's a great time to be on, right in the beginning of the summertime.
Absolutely. And what's everybody else doing? They're sitting at home listening to the Efed Podcast.
Exactly, as they should be doing. Exactly.
Absolutely. So, man, first of all, let's start at the very beginning. First of all, let's start with, I appreciate your support. And obviously, like you said, you guys wanted to put us out there and you wanted to get on the podcast, and we did a little co-promotion in the beginning, and it was a good deal.
Yeah.
So I really, really appreciate you guys, just throwing our name out there to your EFED, the Fed that you were in, and just your general population that you got on Twitter.
Oh, yeah. We definitely were excited. In fact, like I said earlier when we was talking offline, I heard about you. I saw it, but I wasn't really following it until the handler to Richard Osiris, one of my other guys in the crew, he texted me. He was upstairs in where we work at physically. And he said, have you seen this Efed podcast thing? And I said, no. He said, well, we need to check it out. He said, I think it's going to be something. And I was like, all right, so let me see what's going on with it. And so when he started listening to it, he said, oh, this guy's got a good voice. That's the first thing he noticed. He's like, this dude has that podcast voice. Rick, you got to get on there. And then another one of my characters that somebody else handles, John Hartman, he texted me on the phone. He's like, yeah, Richard just hit me up. He said, we need to do this. And I said, okay, well, I'll put my name in and see what happens. And so, then of course that was where we started really investing some time into cross promoting with you and getting you out there. And once we were listening to a couple of episodes, I was like, yeah, so this guy has it. He's all in, so we definitely wanted to do everything possible to get you out there. The only thing we haven't done yet is get you on the advertising role.
There you go. Yeah. No, I appreciate all the promotion and I appreciate the co-promotion. It's been a good deal. So let's kick off the interview, man. Let's start at the very beginning. How did you get into professional wrestling?
Oh, man, that's childhood, 7 or 8 years old, sitting in front of the TV on the UHF channel, Channel 35, WRLH out of Richmond, Virginia, man. Back in the day, we didn't have all these channels, that. And so we was watching WWF, and we was big into it. It's Saturday mornings. You move from WWF to your Saturday morning cartoons, the big bowl of cereal, the chocolate milk. I mean, you didn't miss it. That was our thing. My mother is a big wrestling fan. My uncles, when they were alive, were big wrestling fans. So, and then see, the thing is, on Saturdays you watch wrestling, then on Sundays you would watch football.
Yeah, that's right.
So that was a big thing in my house. So you move from Saturday mornings from wrestling, and then Saturday afternoon was the cartoons. And then Sunday, it's football. And so it was like a whole weekend of family events and stuff between us going back and forth to church and everything. But yeah, that's pretty much how it got started. And it's a part of, what I do, who I am. I love wrestling.
That's fantastic. I fell in love about the same age, and it's a great age to do it.
Oh yeah.
So you said you were a WWF guy early and often. So who were your favorite wrestlers back then?
Oh man, Jake the Snake, Mr. Perfect, Rock and Roll Express in their heyday. Who else? Of course, Flair. You can't leave America's Grandpa, you know, everybody, you saw Flair somewhere in the middle of all that. Who else? I was not a big Hogan fan. I knew a lot of folks that were. I was more of an Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And what was the difference for you?
I think they were more charismatic. I think Hogan always had the fan base. He was the good guy, good guys. And I was like, okay, well, that's nice, but that's obvious, And so, I watched him and everything because he was always main eventing and stuff like that, but I was always pulling for other people at the same time. Of course,
right.
You can't leave out there Rick Rude. Can't leave him out.
So good.
I remember I saw it live when he had Jake the Snake Roberts' wife on his tights.
Yes.
And Jake comes running out and puts that foot to him and pulls the tights down. Oh man, that was a moment.
That was a great angle. Yeah, so good.
Yeah,
very real for the 80s. They talk about how cartoony WWF was. That was not cartoony at all.
That was not cartoony at all. That was, you can tell, he didn't like that at all.
That's good stuff, man. So what about later on? Did you continued to watch wrestling as you got older?
Yeah. I took a break because when I joined the Navy in '97, I was busy, learning Navy stuff, and then I went overseas. So wrestling came on at a different time, but still, it was on overseas every day. We had Superstars, we had Raw, then there was the Rewind, the Raw Rewind, and SmackDown, and all those things. It was like every day there was some kind of wrestling, and the coolest thing was I was able to experience a lot of the Attitude Era overseas.
Yeah.
So it was big in there, and I was coming up in the Navy with 14 other guys in my department, and we was all young and doing the wrestling moves, and downstairs. We probably could have killed ourselves. We was on the ship, and we're down in the gear locker doing these moves, and everybody had a wrestling name on the ship. In my department, we had a guy that we called Flair, had one guy we called Lex, and one guy was Macho Man, and yeah, it was crazy. I was the Heartbreak Kid. In fact, even to this day, they still call me HBK sometimes. This military stuff.
Yeah,
and so
camaraderie.
Yeah, it was it was crazy, but yeah, it was so cool to go through that era overseas. Because then it really stuck to me because football came on, opposite time, and a lot of times I didn't catch a lot of the college football, so I kind of phased out of that, and I kept up with the NFL pretty good, but wrestling was on all the time.
That's awesome, though. That's great that you had all that access. So next off, thank you very much for your service. Appreciate that very much.
Yeah. I finished up my last drill weekend as a reservist this past Sunday.
And how long were you in?
About 14 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't go the extra. I'm not re-enlisting because I have a sprained meniscus that I injured it years ago and didn't realize it. And as a result, it is healed weirdly. And so I'm not able to really bend and bike out the way I used to pass the physical test. So I'm just kind of stepping out the way and letting one of the young cats come in and do their thing. Because when one sailor leaves, that paves the way for somebody else to step up and make rank and do all those things they want to do. That's right. It's been a good run. I finished out with the division of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Been very proud to work with those men and women. They're doing a lot of things right now to, help fight this COVID. And, a lot of decisions are being made on the back end that a lot of folks will never see or hear about because it's just not meant for that. It's meant to just do what it's supposed to do, serve the country, defend the Constitution at all costs, and to take care of everybody, like, myself and you, So I wish them all the best of luck, but I told them, I'm done. I said, I can't do this no more.
Definitely understand. Well, what was your MOS?
I'm a journalist.
There you go. So writing was second nature.
Yes, writing, photography. I worked with Combat Camera. I worked with the CBs. I worked with several public affairs officers around the world. I've moved info. I've done a little bit of everything when it comes to information. So yeah, it's been fun.
That's great. So talk to us about how you got into e-fetting or how you stumbled upon it.
I stumbled upon it. I'm thinking I want to say around 2002-ish, maybe.
Okay.
I was writing for a paper down in North Carolina, and I was looking for a fantasy league to get into. And I didn't know what e-fetting was. I just thought it was kind of like fantasy football and all those things. And I was just on the internet doing internet stuff. I said, I wonder if there are any fantasy wrestling leagues out there. And that's when I came upon Ultimate Wrestling Federation. And I was like, what is this? So I get in, I was asking a bunch of questions, and people were very helpful. One of my friends, Glenn Legend, he was in it with me as a wrestler. And so he really helped me, get on with it and everything. It was me and him and Gary Hitman Reese. They're both still active RPers to this day.
Wow. And
so I kind of started out with this little Ricky. He was a tweener at the point, and I was horrible. Yeah, it was bad, and until I really understood storytelling for that type of sport, which is what I kind of consider it is as a sport. And so I started there, and then that fed shut down for whatever reason, and then Glenn took it up and made a Universal Wrestling Federation what it is to this day. And so, I've been with them, and I kind of dabbled in other feds, but I've always come back. I consider Universal the home, though.
It's crazy that they're still around and you still are associated with them after all that time.
Yeah, I haven't been an active wrestler over there in, 3 to 4 years, but I still consider it the home base,
Sure.
It's one of the places where, I've seen a lot of good writing come out of there. A lot of great eras come out of there, So, I try to participate when I can. But as far as my character goes over there, he's kind of like, a John Cena type at this point where he's done what he's going to do there. And now he's kind of just stepped out the way and letting everybody else kind of do their thing. And, I'll come back every so often and maybe put somebody over or take a bump or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't do too much over there now. I kind of moved on to other things.
And you mentioned Ricky. So let's start there. Your character is Pretty Ricky Stanton.
Yes.
And this is your first character was Ricky Stanton?
Yes, he's my first character.
That's amazing that you're still rolling with the first character. I'm about 6 characters deep before I found the one that I struck to.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's something about the character that he has been able to reinvent himself. The writing that kind of came self-aware after a while. I had to decide what he was going to be, though, whether it was going to be a face, a heel, neutral, a tweener, whatever you want to call it. And I said, a guy like this is he's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. People hate people with money, so
mostly, yeah.
I turned him heel a long time ago, and it just stuck on him. I tried to make him good. It never works out, and I realized that he got more attention, as a heel, but most heels, you don't win a lot of championships,
Right.
Nonetheless, it's fun though.
Yeah. Or don't hold them for long. You screw the champion, you take the belt, and then you end up losing it real quick.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the downfall. But people remember good heels.
No doubt. So Pretty Ricky Stanton, was he pretty back then as well?
Yes. He was prettier back then than he is now.
Well, no, he's older now.
He's kind of grown up a little bit now. I mean, when he first started out, his entrance was like ladies lining the ramp, and he would come up in an elevated platform, 2 ladies on his side. It was this very elaborate entrance, and people hated it,
like a Ric Flair wet dream.
Very much so, and people was like, "Yo, that is just an arrogant dude," and so it had this whole genre, this whole feel of Flair, but he had mic skills like The Rock, know. So it was a very much of a fusion. You know, that would almost be the perfect wrestler if we had one like that. But
the perfect playboy for sure.
Exactly, and I made him very much like that because I like those are two of my top favorite wrestlers. I wanted him to have the charisma of Flair, but also have the mouth like The Rock to be able to turn a line and to really make folks remember him. You know, and so I worked on it and it got to that.
That's great. So talk to us about having a nickname of Pretty and how you came up with that, and not the challenge of doing that, but how have people attacked you using that and how you've responded?
Okay. Well, honestly, I had that name in high school because my name is Ricky. So it all began with an episode of Martin. With the episode of the high school reunion with Pretty Ricky Fontaine. And
it was over. Yep.
It was the next day when I walked into the high school. That was my name. And in high school, in the high school food chain, I was with the Outlaws, the motorcycle jacket wearing, earrings having everywhere guys that really didn't fit with anybody. I was with those guys. Only black guy with them, you know. But I could talk rock music with the best of them, though, still can. And so it kind of, everybody, would say it and everything. I'm like, oh my goodness, when is this going to ever end? It never ended,
Yeah.
And so I simply just, I remembered it and I was like, that would work, and so, but I also wanted him to have a last name that had like a corporate feel to it, so I said Stanton sounds very business, like he should own a company,
Absolutely.
And so that's what I came up with.
That's good stuff. And how have you combated opponents who have tried to attack Pretty?
I get it. Everybody wants to talk about the prettiness. People have tried to kill the prettiness at times. I find that entertaining. They try to hit me with the old jokes, oh, you think you're so pretty and this and that. Like, okay, yeah, you take a number, get in line. I've heard that one before too, and so I kind of let them. I kind of write as if everything they're telling me is old news. I remember one guy, he got so pissed off at me because he felt like I would not sell his insults because he said something about how the prettiness was just making me looking suspicious and everything, and I said, well, in the wrestling hierarchy, I'm not number one. I'm number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so I said, you're down in the lower tier. I said, so I don't have to respond to this. Oh, he got so mad, and I was like, okay.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the HomeFed. You were there for many, many years.
Almost a decade.
Let's talk about your run there, your feuds, your championships, so on and so forth.
Yeah. I had some really good, the championships. I pretty much, Stanton won every title there but the TV title, which he refused to recognize. I believe the reason was he thought it was stupid or something like that. I can't remember it now. But he had won. He actually won every title, and it's still the only active wrestler to beat the owner.
Wow.
No one has beaten the owner, and actually, me and the owner, we made a storyline about that. About how I had jawed off in one segment how I was the only one to beat the owner. No one here is better than me. I beat the boss, so get over it, And so we did an angle about that. He fought his fiance for the championship.
Wow.
Yeah, that was cold.
That's an interesting angle.
Yeah, this girl could write her tail off, and the characters always had a little bit of Kim, and so we worked it to where it was like X-Men. I think it was X-Men: The Last Stand, where the Wolverine, the guy that's really not supposed to be with her, is the one that actually ends the problem. And so she was shipping with some other cat, but he was not in the championship scope at that time. So I talked to him and said, hey, I'm going to take a bump and I'm going to put her over, but I'm more than likely they're going to give me a title shot after that. Are you cool with that? He was like, yeah, that's fine. So we ended up writing the segment for Madison Square Garden where Stanton beats who would eventually become his fiance after it's all said and done for the title. He beat another person for the title. What was it? I think it was a faction there that was very much. I think they're called the Congregation or something like. I can't remember it now. The Divine Congregation, yes. They was big for a minute, and again, Stanton had his crew, but they weren't really a crew just yet. And so, I thought the handler of Blair, if you've seen her on Blair Cavisto, if you've ever seen her handler on Twitter, great writer. I don't know if she writes anymore, but she's a great writer. Her and Stanton always wanted to get her. He always said, she's the favorite milk. He's eventually going to get that girl. Never got her though. She had such a great writing defense. It was awesome. And so they faced each other, and I believe that was like the one time Stanton did some Illuminati stuff and wore the dress to get to win the title. So it was crazy. It was a dress match, a dress match, something like that. It was crazy. But it was some great writing. It was funny writing. My RPs, once upon a time, I wrote them very funny. I wasn't really serious in them. They weren't really dark. They would make you laugh out loud, so we did that. And then there is the angles that I had with Gary Reese, who still, like I say, he's still active to this day on Twitter, where we were constantly battling back and forth at one point. And we ended up kind of doing like a Professor X Magneto type of thing at one point, which was hilarious. He was the guy, he actually bailed Stanton out of jail. Stanton came down to the ramp, snatched the Snickers bar out of a kid's hand and ate it. I wrote an angle to where Snickers sues Stanton for defamation of character. So then he gets arrested for insider trading. And so Gary ends up being the guy of all the people to bail him out. Stanton has faked his death. He actually faked his death. Everybody came to the funeral. He drove by in a limousine and watched him.
It's a sham artist. It's great.
It was the worst ever. He has divorced women to save Stanton Enterprises from sharing half with them. He broke up with a girl on live television. That was awful. It's just a lot of bad things he has done. I mean, so the matches were there. Me and Chris Spade had some fantastic top of the year matches. It started out as one thing. Then it became a thing after a while. Like every year, the first match of the year was me and Chris Spade always. It was like, oh my goodness, And so we would have these crazy matches, so we did that. Then one time I think it was me, Chris Spade, and another guy, we formed a trio called Three the Hard Way. And that went okay for a minute. It didn't get the pop I thought it was going to get. And so we kind of went our separate ways after a few months. Then came the Horsemen, which was pretty much myself, my friend Richard, who became Richard Osiris. Well, Richard Guillotine at first. The Believed John Hartman, and beautiful Bobby Stanton, who was actually my cousin. We're cousins in real life. He stopped writing years ago because he's doing other things. So we became this faction, and the faction ended up taking all the belts at one point. It was, and everybody had the one they hated the most, and I don't know why everybody hated John the most. It was the most. He was hurt OOC for him. He's like, why does everybody hate my character? What have I done? He's like, I haven't done anything. And these guys are mostly role players, so they weren't really main eventers. They won tag team titles, won a Canadian championship once in a while, won hardcore a couple of times, and then after a while, of course, life happens. Everybody eventually. One of the best storylines come out of there was Richard Guillotine, because he was in a coma and wakes up in the hospital, and he sees UWF on the TV. And that's when he realized, you know what? I'm going to start my life again, but I want to be a wrestler. And he comes across Ricky Stanton at a hotel and actually pitches to be, for him to be a wrestler. And Ricky blows him off. And it isn't until years later they realized the reason why he was in a coma was because Ricky and him were involved in an accident. So Ricky was leaving a party and hit Richard, but never found out the outcome of how Richard was doing, where Richard was in a coma for several years. And so this whole storyline comes to fruition, and which made everybody hate Ricky even more. Kind of like, wow, this guy's a dick, wow. so now everybody wants Richard to leave the Horsemen. I mean, I had like the whole Fed, like Richard has to leave the Horsemen. There's no way after realizing this truth, that man can stay with a man like this. This is horrible, And so it kind of began the dismemberment of the Horsemen.
That's great, though. Every group gets together to break up.
Yeah, it's kind of the nature of the beast. And so John ends up going to Tokyo to wrestle over there. Bobby stays home, handles Stanton Enterprises, and Ricky goes on to doing other things in the wrestling world. And then I introduced another character, Justinia, the Duchess.
Okay.
Everybody thought he would have an illegitimate son out there somewhere eventually, but it was really a daughter. He had her raised by a guardian, and she finds out eventually who she is because she finds things in the house. And so she's dealing with separation issues, not knowing who her mother and father is and everything. And when she finally comes to UWF, she comes in pretty much playing the guilt trip on Ricky for everything that he had done and not telling her who she was and all that stuff. And so Justinia did something that had never been done. She actually purchased the UWF heavyweight title and was the only person to do that because there was no caveat there. There was never a written rule that the title could not be purchased. And so I pitched to Glenn and said, hey, Glenn, I got this character. I actually handled this character myself. And I said, hey, I want Justinia to buy the title. He went, oh my God, that's awful. He said, when can you write it? And so we wrote it, and oh man, you talking about the heat that came down on that poor character. And then what made it best, I don't write female characters very well already. I mean, my writing is horrible with them. I actually got a girl to write Justinia for me. And so she brought so much depth to the character that it made it, she was the splitting image of Ricky Stanton. And so it became like this, this other entity that people were learning to hate. Like it's another Stanton that no one likes. And here they come again, So right now she heads up what I call SE Test Labs, which eventually will lead to the formation of Blood Nation.
Okay. And we'll get there. So that's awesome that you created a character that was a offspring of your first character. Same kind of storyline, and then you evolved it over time to still be involved today.
Yes.
It's incredible that's how you started. My first character was a clown. I mean, it's crazy. Kudos to you, man. Kudos to you.
I mean, when Ricky came out, I mean, he was not even noticed. And so I was like, okay, I got to find a way to get this character noticed. The first title I wanted to get UWF was a hardcore title. And so I actually made him carry the hardcore title like it was the UWF championship. And so people really did not like that. Like, he's walking around with this hardcore title like it's the heavyweight championship. And I did that. I mean, I actually made it to where, and Glenn will definitely agree with me, the hardcore title ended up being, more noticeable than the heavyweight title because of how Stan would carry it, like he was the man. It's just a hardcore title. I mean, on the food chain, it's very low.
It's not about what you have; it's about what you make of it.
Exactly, and that's pretty much what Stanton did. And it did a lot for that whole division, honestly.
Hey, quick shout out to Chris Spade. You mentioned him there in the story. Chris Spade and I got to share a lunch in St. Louis and had a great time. So shout out to him. And
most definitely.
He's a pretty cool dude.
Yes, he is. Very cool dude.
Awesome. So after you created Ricky, you created the other character. What happened next?
Pretty much at that point, I kind of hit my peak with UWF.
Okay.
And so roughly around about 2017, 18-ish, I decided that I was going to actually launch Stanton Enterprises as a separate entity, as an actual conglomerate to where I could help other feds and help other wrestlers get on. There had been the Efed magazine, Efed Zone. I studied how they, did their format. I'd gone through and looked at everything they did. I said, okay, I don't want to do anything like them. I kind of want to do something different. So I wanted original programming. I wanted some articles to kind of take everything that I had learned in e-fedding and share it with other people in regards to writing techniques. And a lot of this is from me as a personal writer. I shared a lot of what I learned from the field. I simply twisted it for an EFED focus in regards to character development. A lot of things I'm going through with the character now, I've written about already in my articles. And, and I began sharing those articles with the community to see what kind of feel it would get. And people liked them. And I said, okay, well, maybe I can keep this up sooner or later. And so I wrote like 35 articles or so. And I know Ben Halcomb, he does EW Mania.
Yeah.
He circulates them a little bit. Big shout out to Ben, by the way. He's doing big things, and he's a referee in wrestling. So he's doing an outstanding job. And shout out to ewmania.com for all their support.
Yeah, Ben's a good buddy, and you can find the Efed podcast right there on ewmania.com as well.
Yes, indeed. And so he helped us get SE off the ground with it, actually having a nice domain. And so he helped us with the back end because I really didn't feel like going through all the coding again. And so he really helped me out in that area. And so we started writing original programming, getting other wrestlers that I had never talked to involved. It helped me expand my EFED knowledge of the community, which is very, very big. I didn't realize how big it was, and so I started venturing out and really getting to know other wrestlers, other feds, cameoing in a few feds, just kind of getting a feel for how, what kind of situation it was and everything, and meeting other wrestlers. It was really cool, so I kind of, I began to slowly stray away from what I was doing to making SE this conglomerate, of media. And then we started, the idea was, okay, well, let's help out other feds by advertising for them, streaming their programming on, putting their links and giving them space on the site to where folks can definitely go right to the programming. A lot of folks, like myself at first, they have great sites, but sometimes you got to really dig to find the shows. And so we were hoping to kind of cut the middleman out and be able to stream it for them, still lead them to the site, but kind of cut out make it a little easier to find the shows. And that really has worked out. A lot of these shows that we stream on the SC site get several hundred views a month. And so we're very happy about that, to be able to help those folks out.
And where can people find the SC network?
sc.fedwars.org.
There you go. And on Twitter?
Gosh, Stanton ENT.
There you go. All the links for the SE network. If you want to get your Fed involved, reach out to Ricky here and see what you guys can put together.
Yeah. A lot of what I do, I'm a technical writer on the outside, so I do a lot of coding. And so we were able to design a way to circulate advertising on a daily basis for the feds we are affiliated with. And so that really worked out for us. It was a good situation for them. And it kind of, killed a lot of the maintenance in regards to updates. Updates are easy to do. And we try to do it on Mondays to kind of keep things fresh throughout the week. But yeah, always looking for feds to work with. If it's a good situation for them and for us, we definitely will bring them on.
Awesome. And so did Pretty Ricky Stanton's, where did his journey go from there?
Well, after getting SC off the ground, I knew I didn't want to, I wanted a fed for SE, but I did not want a traditional fed. Okay. I didn't want to do the whole fed head thing. Honestly, I'm lazy. I'm lazy. I seen folks do it. I seen folks launch feds, and within a month they're done with it because there's when you're running a fed, there's so much going on. People are contacting you and pitching ideas. I said, man, I really don't want to deal with none of that. And we was at lunch downtown Norfolk, Virginia. I'll never forget it. Me and Richard were eating lunch, and he was like, it would just be nice if we could just code a robot to do it. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, no, we just do. We're sitting here doing nothing. We can just code a robot. We're contractors, so a lot of times we have a lot of downtime. And so, and I said, well, how would we do that? I mean, there are sims out there. I mean, I know about the EFED sims that everybody claims they never use, but they
Zeus
did.
Pro. Yeah.
Zeus Pro. But it involved me having some kind of influence in the outcome because I got to run the results. And I didn't want that. I didn't want that either. And so he said, well, why don't we just write a code that's a randomizer that we'll publish to Twitter, and Cheap Bots Done Quick has their platform does that. The only thing we had to do was write the code. And so I went through and we wrote this code, and it's interesting. And so when I put it out there, one guy was like, "Do you want to start the Rise of Machines? Because this is how you start the Rise of the Machines, you know." But the pitch is, we with the AI, as I attribute it to, there is no Fed head. She is the Fed head. She's the Carter. She's the Booker. She's everything. You're reading results. We observe the trends and we write results to the trends. And so I was like that. I could do that. You know, that's doesn't take no time at all. It's very easy to do. I can do that. And so Blood and Nation was born.
Blood and Nation, as far as I know, the first AI run Efed.
I can't recall. If there's another one out there, I don't know you. Don't be offended, but yes, I believe it's the first one that's run by AI. You know, at first people didn't believe it. You know, they was like, nah, he's lying. There's someone on the back end that's responding and doing all this stuff. I actually went through and I studied people's chats, their tweets, their dialogue for a month. I went through and I looked at the behaviors of what people say, how they say it, and how they phrase things. And I created a dialogue system for band to respond in those ways. So you got a little bit of it when you announced me being on the podcast.
Oh yes, I did.
And it was, band was scarily accurate. It was like, wow, so that's a pretty accurate response, you know, for a robot, you know. So
yeah, if you guys want to check it out, hit the Twitter at the Efed Podcast. Go a couple tweets down, you'll find the question thread for Pretty Ricky Stanton, and in that thread, every single time someone commented on the post, the robot would comment on their comment.
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, but there is some dialogue in there where you can tell it's definitely a bot. We didn't make it too humanizing. She has roughly 50 to 75 different responses she could give at any given time. And so we're still working on that as we go along, but it's been great. People have responded so well. I just want to thank everybody for being gracious to the idea of responding to an AI. It's been a great place for people. I think when people realize that I have nothing to do with it, whatever comes out is whatever comes out, and that's just how it is, you know. I think people really it's been a good response. You know, we've had a lot of people come along and say, I actually had somebody sign up last week. I got a program in and get them ready to go for tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So it's gotten a great response. I'm just thrilled about that.
I think it's awesome. And you guys can check it out on Twitter at PromotionsN. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
PromotionsN. So check it out there, Blood and Nation Promotions. It's got a full website as well with results for the pay-per-views. It's pretty cool. It was recently featured on our Efed Spotlight segment.
Yes, we definitely appreciated that. And so, but that's pretty much where Stanton is right now. He's more of the admin for Blood and Nation. Of course, Stanton Enterprises kind of runs itself. We find good ideas. We are also the sponsor for the Toronto Frost in LFL. So big shout out to the Toronto Frost. They had a great season last season, so we were very proud of that. They were a new team that came up. And so they did really well last season. They didn't make it all the way, but they did really well. And so it was decided that we were definitely going to be with them for the upcoming season. And so we're looking forward to doing more work with them and getting them more involved in the SC universe.
That's awesome. Great way to branch out, build the Efed community. Same thing we're trying to do here at the Efed Podcast. Really appreciate that everybody who enjoys playing the game together, you guys, can get together, have fun, and build these little communities.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is about people shouldn't take this too personal. It's not, we all have lives, and I try to keep it as icy as possible to let folks know, hey, this is just a character. I mean, that I don't act that way. I'm a married guy with two kids, so I have a life, and you just want to constantly reinforce that message that it's a game, where I'm not living vicariously through this character. I'm simply just writing. That's just what I'm a writer. That's what I do.
100%. It's a game, guys. It's not serious.
Yeah, it's not serious.
Speaking of not too serious, are you ready for the Twitter questions?
Go ahead. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. At TW Combat, one of our good friends and sponsors here at the Efed Podcast, they ask, what is your ultimate goal with the new AI-run Efed that you've created? On a side note, it seems really cool and looks fun to be a part of.
The goal is to keep evolving Blooded Nation until we can't evolve it anymore. Blooded Nation is running off close to 150 lines of code. We write the code in JSON as a grammar code. And so we're always looking to try to push the label on how much we can do with the code to make it as realistic as possible. So right now we're in season 2 of Blooded Nation. We scaled back to weekly shows because of the COVID virus, and being at home is kind of hard to keep up and have time to write like I did in the office. So we're doing weekly shows now. But the goal is to, first of all, have active E-Fedders in it. I know a lot of folks had signed up their characters, and then we had some that simply contributed because they wanted to help get it off the ground. So they signed up some NPCs that they weren't really using for other feds, but they wanted to help out, and then we phased them out. And then we actually, the actual E-Fedder started signing up. So now everybody on the roster is an actual E-Fedder out there, which is really, really awesome. It just shows that people really like the product that's being put out, and they like the idea that's being presented. But season 3, we're looking to do some upgrades in regards to band's dialogue and behavior. We're looking to work more on the results writing, not just have them summarized, but have a little more detail to help the wrestlers out. Some of them, this might be their only fed. I don't know. But we definitely want to increase the quality of the results writing. That was something we discussed at our last little get together. And then, we just see where it goes. We offer the Blood World title. We offer the Blood TV title. And then there's the 24/7 hardcore title, which is always defended at every show. And so, it's gotten a lot of good response. So, yeah.
It could be the future of e-fedding. I mean, that sounds crazy. But the worst part of this game is bias. And when you eliminate the bias...
And that's what I wanted to do.
More people are inclined to play. So it may be the future of e-fedding. I'm just saying you may have stumbled upon something huge. And I appreciate it.
You never know. You never know.
At That's Azzy Vebbins, which would Ricky Stanton fare better at, a Runnin' Man dance marathon or competing on the game show known as The Runnin' Man, hosted by Damon Killian, a.k.a. Richard Dawson? Another great follow on Twitter, That's Azzy Vebbins.
Oh, yeah, she is awesome. Her character, I actually was really attracted to her accent. The accent, I can literally hear the accent in my head when I read her tweets.
Until you hear me say it on the Efed podcast, because I can't read them to save my life, Ricky. I can't do it.
I hear them in the voice of the Gypsy and Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, I understand what she's saying. As a very basic white male, I cannot enunciate the accent needed for this character.
I would say a Running Man contest. I think that he could own that. Just the Prettiness can own that.
There you go. At Lexi Gold 13, how does one become pretty like Ricky Stanton?
Oh, Lexi knows better than to ask a question like that. It takes years of study. It's not something you learn overnight. Now some people have it. They just don't have it. they won't they don't let the prettiness come out. For example, Lexi Gold, she has the prettiness, but she will not release it. Eventually I'm going to get her to release it. It's kind of like Lord Sidious with Luke Skywalker. Yes, release date. But yeah, it takes a while. It depends on the person and what they're willing to do to get to the top of wrestling. That's what it really takes.
There you have it. At Q is gonna break ya. Who is your favorite? Who is your favorite at Stanton ENT signed talent, and why is it your girl Q?
Honestly, Q actually grew on me like a little sister. I'm not gonna lie. I know her character's parents. Stanton actually wrestled against Jay Aguero, the New Perfection, in UWF, also in PWU. And so when she comes up, I thought it would be petty to actually give her some pushes just to dig at him a little bit, to show like, look at me, I got your child, you're still nothing after all these years, Jay. You're still nothing because I'm giving your kid a push and I'm doing more for her than you're doing. So I'm thinking it's going to be really super petty. He loves it because he's thinking, oh, the New Perfection has been branded as SE and we're taking all his belts. So it's petty versus petty right now. Q's in the middle, has no idea, So, but yeah, Q grew on us like a little sister. And so, she is one of my favorite characters in SE because, she just has this quirkiness about her. Very hardcore. She's all in for SE. That's why it was decided, hey, we need to sign Q and just make her an active personnel for SE, represent us out there because she just has that quirkiness about her. And so, yeah, I would agree. Q is one of the favorites. We don't have many people that we actually sign on as active talent in other feds. We're working on that, but we're still trying to figure out how to do that. But Q is one of the first that we actually have given the keys to and said, take the Stanton brand and show it off a little bit. So, but yeah, she's crazy.
That's fantastic. Her second question is, after all these years, how do you keep things fresh while continuing to keep your character so hated amongst multiple generations? There she is, touching on the generational thing.
Yeah, because Stanton, I've been RPing with Stanton for almost 2 decades. And there's been times where he hasn't fit in at many places. Some feds are still grappling with the trial of role players coming in as a group and only RPing with themselves and not really opening up any programs for other wrestlers. They'll put each other over, but they won't put other wrestlers over, which I find is trash. And so when I find those, I kind of steer away from them because they got their own little clique going on. The only people, in my opinion, that have done it right, that have actually role played together, but also incorporated other wrestlers to match with and put over, and then also get put over on in exchange, are the Shield Maidens. The Shield Maidens, in my opinion, are one of the best factions of this decade, next to the Dogs of War. I don't think any two factions have made such an impact on e-fetting than those two right there. They were at one point, the Dogs of War were everywhere. So shout out to the handler, Chris Constantine. That was an awesome push. We actually had them featured in one of our shows on the SE Network because they were popular, and I was like, oh, I got to guest star them. So but out next to them, definitely the Shield Maidens. Stanton has had his run-in with several Shield Maidens and the Chrome Dragons. At one point, people thought I was a member of the Chrome Dragons, which made people hate me even more. And I was like, no, was never a member. I actually tried to buy them. That didn't go over well. And so that didn't work out. And so, and then, so shout out to the Forge, by the way. Good guy. Hope he's doing something great somewhere. A lot of them had done, they do great work. I mean, that whole group of writers, they do good work. I mean, you got to read their stuff. It's really good. So anytime you see that Shield Maidens motorcycle, stop take a pause and give it a good look at what the stories are, because they're really good. But as far as keep staying relevant to, the heat, I think people need someone to remind them that there is still a heel out there that does heel things. And I think that's what makes my character relevant even to this day, because he's evolved past being just a wrestler, but as a businessman, as someone who can dominate on the outside in the corporate world, from landing deals with feds to football team to now Supreme MMA. Big shout out to Supreme MMA. There are new MMA fed coming up that approached us, and I was very intrigued. And I said, yeah, let's do something together. So they're doing their thing here soon, and so Stanton is like the Thanos. I consider him like the Thanos of Efeding. He has a lot of gems on the glove, and he lets you know that hey, I am the centerpiece of this community. Don't forget it, and a lot of folks just can't stand that. I mean, like I told you, we had made a stake that, we're better than everybody. Our Stanton Enterprises rules the world, and we had people, messaging us like, okay, well, what makes you better than everybody else? What makes you better than the Battleground Network? Shout out the Battleground Network. Love you guys. Don't have no beef with you. Circle TV, got no beef with you. You're doing great things. I love it, But, people were
it's a game.
Yeah, they was hitting us up, and they had really, that's when we realized we were past being just with one Fed, that we were affecting other people, even before coming on here. I mean, I had a comment made like this: I wonder if you realize he's actually hated OOC. And I was like, no, I'm not hating OOC, because when you get to know me, you realize that I'm a pretty cool person. I think I am. And everything you see.
I think you're pretty cool.
Yeah, everything you see on the board is not me. That's the character. I'm very compassionate. I've been married for 19 years. I have one son going to Pitt coming in the fall. I have another son who's going to probably commit to Yale this fall. We've been very blessed to have some very smart kids. I have a wonderful wife to credit for that, so because I'm not smart, not smart at all. But the thing is, I'm not that guy. I play that guy very well because I'm not that guy. And so you play the opposite always. And I just simply, I study people's words. I've studied people's words for 2 decades as a professional writer. I know what the triggers are. I can see the weaknesses. I can see the weak spots, and from those techniques, I'm able to really put together some great programs with some great writers. And even to this day, they're talked about. They know, like, hey, this was really, we had a good time, even with Mile High Wrestling. Shout out to Mile High. They closed down this year, unfortunately. But
shout out to Rob.
Yeah, Rob Mack, man. It was a very, very good Fed. Me and Solomon Kane had a great program in there because, it was just, Stanton's he's just a dick. I mean, is the way to put it. For example, the one thing that caught me off guard when I realized, I'm like, wow, this is, Stanton's just a very awful person. I did a seg about him getting mad with one of the stagehands about having red M&Ms in the bowl. And people thought that was the pettiest thing. the Monday morning, right? I wake up, I go to work, I check my messages. I have like 27 DMs like, damn, Ricky, that was off. That's petty, like, what are they talking about? I said, oh, the red M&Ms.
Oh, yeah. That's a good segue to her last comment, Q's. I think the character is a work of genius and can't believe the heat you get. There you have it. Red M&Ms.
Yeah, the red M&Ms, man. People actually from other feds read that segment and was like, damn, that is some petty stuff, And then people were making comments about it, and people were like, it generated a lot of heat for Stanton because it was such an out of pocket type of action to make. It simply showed its arrogance, and it's a great example of how you take something small and it grows on you. You don't have to do something flamboyant as a heel to get heat. You can take something as small as a bowl of red M&Ms and make that something so petty that people talk about it for days. And they did, so it was great for the Fed. It was great for MC, great for the character. So everybody kind of benefited from it because it brought a lot of attention to the show, so it was really cool. But yeah, it doesn't take a lot. I think, he plays, he's a villain. He's a villain. He's a guy that can turn on you at any moment. He's a guy that's an opportunist. He's a strategist. He is everything you don't like about the 1 percentile. If you're someone who follows politics, if you don't like the elitist, if you don't like the 1%, then Stanton's going to get under your chin a little bit because that's what he is.
An elitist. I like it. All right. Up next on Twitter, we got @FaceDevlin. How are you alive after being exploded at the greatest wrestling with Christ?
Oh, wow. I'm surprised that she asked the question. Stanton is inevitable. I have said this time and time again. I don't know how many times I have to say it. Stanton is inevitable. Shout out for Wrestling with Christ. I had a short stint over there. Good folks. It was definitely different. So I really was, I tried to do the product for a little bit. But definitely good people over there. They do a good job. And I believe he's still putting out some really good shows. So a big shout out to them. But yeah, Stanton is inevitable. Like I said, he's the Thanos of wrestling. He has his hands, he watches everything and sees everything. And, it's kind of like the Mad Titan a little bit. Sometimes you got to go in and wipe out half the folks to keep things fresh. I'm going to get heat about that comment. I know I am, but anyway.
What's new? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
all right. We got a few more questions over on the Discord. On the Discord server, we got Judge Megan. Is it very tricky to run the AI Fed, and what do you exactly have to do?
That's a good question. The trickiest part is making sure the code works effectively, making sure that you have the end product that's cranked out on Twitter is within the 150 characters. So wording is important because you don't want to use long words. You want to use short words. You want to use abbreviations if possible to keep within the 150 character limit so that the results that are cranked out by the AI do not get cut off, let alone get paused because the AI can't produce a result based on the character limit. So it's important to have that in place. Number two, you got to run the code offline to make sure that it reads decent so people can understand what you're putting out. So that takes some time. And of course, above it all, you got to know JSON code. If you understand JSON code, then you pretty much crack the code of AI. Because it's a little tricky. I've read several books on it. I love the code. I think it's the wave of the future when it comes to randomizing anything. But it takes some time to really, it takes practice. That's the only thing I can tell you. It takes practice, but it's low maintenance. I barely look at the code unless I'm putting in a new member to ban or if I'm updating her response system. But it's very low maintenance. The most that I'm doing is I'm waking up to fresh results like everybody else is. So that's just where it's at, but it's low maintenance right now. But you got to understand coding and understand how to piece it all together when it comes to speaking to Twitter and making sure that you stay within those limits.
There you go. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about coding. This is all technical garbage to me.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's awesome. But no, it's great though, man. I'm glad someone's doing it. Her next question is, what's one thing you do not like about e-fedding today?
What I don't like about e-fedding today is the negative energy. And I think that's a commonly used saying, but it's true.
Very true.
When people go OOC on something that was said icy, I can't stand that. I'll block you. Because that lets me know you're a poor writer and you take things personally when it should not be taken personally. I do not like when people do not listen when you're trying to communicate. If something has happened or if something has gone, if there's a miscommunication, I'm a grown man. If you have a problem with me hit me up, but to just talk trash all day about someone and not face them as a fellow writer, and you decide to do that, I think that's trash. I'll block you. I just won't deal with it, and I don't have to deal with it. I mean, e-fetting for me is my outlet. I don't have many outlets. Everything I do outside of e-fetting is in conjunction with my family, my job, the community. I'm very active in the community. So when I need to relax and just do something different, I e-fet, so I will not have anybody jeopardizing what I enjoy. And some people have tried that. They try to get me out of my comfort zone. I do not like that. I will block you, and that's it. You're done, because it just lets me know that you have not grown and matured in your writing, and you have not grown and matured in yourself. If you are living through your character and you get offended when something is said through the character, and you are saying that character reflects me as a person, you're trash. And I don't deal with trash. There's an old saying, you hang around the flies long enough, that's because you're in trash. And that's where the flies go. So if you're in trash, if you deal with trash, flies are going to come and they're going to buzz around you and they're going to aggravate you. So I don't know, if people don't know that about me, you should know that, come to me direct, let me know what the offense is, and I can probably explain to you right off the hand, here's what happened, here's why it happened. If you want me to send you screenshots, I can do that, but I'm not going to go back and forth with you for so long before I cut you off and just leave you in purgatory, which is a shame, because sometimes things can be aired out properly. But if you're going to be a hag, and if you're going to be someone that is just going to just constantly nag, okay.
You're going to catch the block button.
You get the block button, plain and simple.
That's right.
I mean, Bama's like that. I just don't deal with. I do not deal with it at all. I will cut you off, and life goes on for me. Yeah. I mean, I'm just not going to do it. Because I'm thinking about everybody else on Twitter in the Efed community. They
don't want to see it. They don't want to see the back and forth. They don't want to
read that stuff and constantly, I say this from personal experience because I've had it on me. And so I know how it feels. And I know how it feels to, you're constantly, you find yourself responding back and forth to stuff that really makes no sense. People are not explaining themselves. They're not contextualizing properly. And you're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm out. I'm not going to deal with it anymore. So yeah, it's about the energy. I don't like that. I don't deal with it, because people out here are dying for less, and you're crying about something that my character did to your character that you were offended at. Come talk to me. Don't sit there and try to trash me. I mean, don't do that. I mean, I won't allow it.
Just be adults.
Be adults. And if you're not an adult, I mean, because we got some e-fetters that are teens and 20s and 30s, that's fine. Know that if you're dealing with me, you're dealing with an adult. I mean, that's plain and simple. Just don't assume you're dealing with an adult. And if you can't handle it, don't deal with me. I have no problems with that.
Up next on the Discord, we've got Rebel. Rebel wants to know, Ricky, I've watched you go through big highs and some low points in your e-fetting career. How do you stay so positive even in the most soul-crushing moments?
I realize quickly when it's time to make some changes. I don't wait around too long. I was with one Fed where I lost 5 times in a championship match. I main evented 5 times for a belt and lost it all 5 times. And as a writer, I'm like, okay, this is burying my character. Either I make a change, Fed-wise, personnel-wise, or I just keep dealing with this. And then, of course, you hear things, people are telling you stuff, and you're not understanding. I don't like not understanding. I think the biggest thing about staying positive is remembering what you got into this for. And for me, I got into it to have a good time. I'm not going to say I'm going to win everything. I'm not trying to win everything. The role of the bad guy is to tell the story, is to help feed the story, is to help feed the face and, explain why he is the bad guy, why people need to boo him. And I understand that very clearly. But staying positive for me is realizing that this is just a game, realizing that when I get off Twitter, I'm in real world. I got real world things going on. and I don't, and that's it. I don't carry it with me offline. Never. It's just, it's a game. Everybody's playing the same game. Biggest and best game out there right now, in my opinion. And I'm just doing my part, but I'm not going to have people that I'll never meet actually, toss water on me. That doesn't make sense. I read the articles like everybody else reads the articles of kids killing themselves, from cyberbullying, and I take that seriously because I was bullied in high school. Like I told you, I was on the lower food chain of the high school bracket back in the day, but I take that seriously. I take it when it's done to other people. I don't, like I said, I'm not into it. I'm just not into that. I'm at an age where I'm doing so many good things out here, that I can't have this be my downtrend. I'll just stop. I'll just vanish one day. You just won't see me again if it gets to that point, but, that's why I try to help people understand who I am on the outside. That's why when I hear comments that are said about me, oh, he's not liked in real life either, and this and that. I'm like, okay, well, who doesn't like me? Why they don't like me? Let's talk about it. I'm not saying everybody's going to like you, but at the same time, though, when a comment is made public, be prepared to stand by your comment. Otherwise, just don't say it at all. Because again, I'm gonna think you're trash. So, and I'm gonna block you. And I'm like, okay, well, you just saying stuff to be saying stuff, OOC, and you're not even saying it in character. If you're saying it in character, that's just heel business doing heel things. But if you're gonna come at me as you, the person, okay, well, you've got problems. You've got some serious problems. I should not be dealing with, and I just need to get out of your way. And I'm more strict on that now because the SE guys, they were like, you're letting things go too far with these people. Cut them off. We have a good community of folks we Efed with that don't want to read that. And I'm like, you're right. You're definitely right. And so we have a strict policy on it. Even when it comes to feds, if you have a Fed that is constantly coming and going, we're done. Okay, well, I can't keep dealing with this. Again, it creates a bad energy. So but that's how you stay positive. You draw the lines down in regards to what you're going to deal with and what you're not going to deal with. And I think if more people did that out here, the world would be a better place because you'd have some barriers, you have some boundaries, and that's pretty much it.
Spoken like a wise man.
Thank you.
All right. Up next, we've got the Whirlwind head booker. Would you join an Efed that's a totally new circle of writers from your usual spots? Why or why not? And if so, how would you go about fitting into the community? And how would you go about getting the unknowns to pay attention to your new work?
Oh, that's a real good question. I've already done that, actually. One Russell movement is the angle fed that Stanton in character owns 75% of the ownership. Again, I like when people present ideas to me that plays to my character really well. And so I'll actually announce it right now because it hasn't been announced yet. But shit. Stanton actually signed a full-time contract with One Russell Movement. So you'll be seeing a lot more of him in action with that Fed. It's a great bunch of writers there. A lot of them I do not know. And in fact, all of them I don't know. And I was very skittish at first. When I got brought on with the idea, I was like, okay, sure, the role of the network executive, like he's kind of Vince-like. And I did it at Mile High very well. We had a great time with it. And so I said, okay, I can do that over here at One Russell as well. And so we started doing it. It's been going great. But these are people that I do not know. And so I've been watching how they write, been watching the segments, watching the characters, kind of trying to understand where I fit in with each character. There are a lot of people that I may not work with, not because I do not like them as people. It's just that the character situation has to be good. And that's how I operate. I look for the best possible situation in a story to be able to tell it effectively. And if the person gets put over, great. If the match gets put over, great. If I get put over, great. So there are three ways it can go that can benefit the Fed. And if everybody else benefits, wonderful. But the biggest thing is, can I tell an effective story with the material you're presenting? And if I can do that, then more than likely, I'm going to reach out to you directly and say, hey, I like your character. I got an idea. What do you think? Or I'm going to say, hey, take a bump this week. Let me, take a bump for these reasons. Or, hey, come, I'll take a bump. Let me take a bump. You come into the ring, you do this and everything, and I'll do this right here. It's going to be great, So I do those things I can do those things with new people as well, So I think it's a very important trait to have as a writer in the Efed world. You got to be able to find your place, and sometimes that takes a while. And a lot of folks don't like waiting around. They want to get right into it immediately, and it's not going to happen. For Stanton, with one wrestle movement has not happened immediately, because of how well that's been constructed. And so as of today, I signed a full-time contract with them. So he'll be on the card, monthly. I think it's a monthly angle Efed. So it's gonna be great.
There you have it. Efed Podcast exclusive.
Yeah.
So our last question from the Discord is, you had a really compelling feud with Zombie of the Shield Maidens in Mile High. Was there any other Shield Maiden you would have liked to have feuded with had Mile High not closed? Question is from Matt, a.k.a. Becca Bruiser of the Shield Maidens.
Woo, Becca Bruiser. Oh, man. I always, that's a really good question. There wasn't really anybody else in the Shield Maidens that I think had a character. It's not disrespected nobody in the Shield Maidens by no means. They all had great characters. But I think Zombie stuck out as the antagonist of the bunch for Stanton, because she never would back down. She never would yield. And it drove me nuts, So I was like, man, she won't back down, I would write and I would write. She would constantly come at me. I mean, she would get involved in the tweeting conversations, and she made herself very visible to me. And that's what attracted me to her character, is she would make herself visible. She got into the conversations, even when they were not even about her. She was in the conversation. I'm like, who is this person? So I actually reached out to her and was like, hey, you got some good stuff. I want to do some things, So we actually worked a few programs together. And so it was the one time where Stanton actually won over Proposed Face, which is rarely happens in wrestling. And people were stunned, kind of like, what the hell? I remember that weekend, I was shocked myself, but there wasn't really anybody else that really attracted me, as far as wanting to work with them. I'm sure there were stories there I left on the table, like we all did, but Zombie for me was the target acquired. So but we had a good time with it.
That's terrific. Last question is at Mikey Unlikely. Great guy. Great follower of the show. It's me. You mentioned a couple times you are NFL guy. Who is your team?
Oh, America's team, the Washington Redskins.
Oh, the Redskins.
The Redskins, they're America's team. The Cowboys being America's team is a myth. It floated around the 90s. That's an urban myth. You find it on Unsolved Mysteries of Robert Stack almost. That's how old it is, But it's the Redskins. This year will be the year. COVID or no COVID, it's going to happen. So hail to the Redskins.
Are you a Dwayne Haskins guy then?
Yes, I will be with him as long as I can. He's the Ohio State. We have a lot of Ohio State and Alabama players on the team. So I'm thinking we have like the perfect team. You got an Alabama defense and an Ohio State offense. You can't go wrong. I mean, really.
All right, man, before we go ahead and give out any shout outs, anything you missed, any links you want to hit, the Twitter links for Pretty Ricky Stanton, so on and so forth. Why don't you go ahead and plug anything else you want to plug?
All right. I'm going to plug Kane Dominguez. Kane, we have only just begun, my friend. Last month, you took on my girl Q, and you couldn't even beat Q, but yet you think you can beat Stanton. Let me tell you about that. Your name has already been rejected by God himself. What makes you think you can come to Mount Olympus and take on the dirtiest player in the game, but the prettiest man in history. How do you think that can happen? So you're going to get your shot. You're going to get your chance to see if you can put your hands on the prettiest wrestler, the newest full-time signed wrestler at One Wrestle Movement. And we're going to see how legendary you can get. You're going to get pushed to the level that you've not been pushed to at all. I've watched your stuff. I've seen you. You're bored. I can tell you're bored. The most action you got was against Q, and Q carried you to the level. So we're going to see if you can get to the boss level up here at the Stanton level. We're going to see what you're made of, because you think you're ready, but you're really not. And so we're going to see if you can make it to the 1%, or if I have to knock you back down to the 99% of people who hate, despise Stanton. It's either congratulations, you made it, or take a number and get in line. So that's my last word. It goes out to Kane from One Wrestle Movement. If you're listening, you better listen, because the pretty boy is here. He is on the scene now. And I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know how he's going to do it. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be so pretty. Oh, man. And that's all I got to say.
That's awesome. Hey, before we go, I forgot to mention the Heartbreak Hotel podcast.
Yes. Yeah. I have not been consistent with it lately. That's why I didn't bring it up. But I will be trying to get back online with that maybe this week. I usually try to post a notification on it about 10 or so minutes prior to the podcast starting to let folks know. And we'll definitely be talking about this interview, everything going on with One Wrestle, everything going on with Bloody Nation, and a little bit of everything going on in the real world of professional wrestling. So be sure to check it out this week. It'll happen. I'll definitely get it going before Mother's Day. And shout out to all the moms out there if I don't hear from you before that point. So, and mamas, and mamas, and
maybe mamas. I'm sorry, Miss Jackson.
Exactly.
Oh, amazing. All right, man. Ricky, thank you so much for coming on the Efed Podcast. Thanks for joining us for this interview. This is a ton of fun.
Awesome. I've had a great time. I enjoy it. And I hope that everybody else also has a good time with it as well.
Very good. There you have it, guys. Ricky of Pretty Ricky Stanton of Blood and Nations Promotions. Follow him on Twitter. Follow him everywhere. It's a great time. SE Network.
Yep.
And that's going to wrap us up for another edition of the Efed Podcast. I want to thank our sponsors as always. I want to thank EWC for sponsoring the Efed Podcast Question of the Week. Check them out at EWC4life.com. I want to check out Defiance Wrestling, DefianceWrestling.com. If you're into angle feds and you're looking for a new home, Defiance is a great place to be. Check out AtomicDropcast.com. That's my other podcast with Brian, where we go over 1997 Raw and pay-per-views each and every week. I want to thank TW Combat for supporting the show and sponsoring us. Make sure you give him a follow on Twitter at TW Combat. And, of course, we want to thank Modern Day Gladiators for sponsoring the show. Check out that game, guys. It's an interesting concept. They're turning e-wrestling into a tabletop game. And don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Efed Podcast if you want to help support the show. I want to thank Brian for producing the show, as always, and being a part of the Efed Podcast team. And I want to thank each and every one of you for listening today to the Efed Podcast, where the wrestling is written, but the characters are real.
commercial free on Patreon.